Hello, everyone, and welcome to Better Together. My name is Julian Lute, and on behalf of Great Place to Work, thank you for joining our CEO conversation today. Now, this is going to be a great one, especially since worldwide technology truly knows how to build a high-trust workplace where leaders are driven by their purpose and demonstrate care at every turn, especially during uncertain times. So let's get this conversation started by covering a few housekeeping notes. As always, we look forward to your questions, so please submit them in the questions panel. Our colleagues will field the questions and we'll do our best to answer them. We'll be recording the session, and so we'll send along that recording within 48 hours. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Jim Kavanaugh, the co-founder and CEO of Worldwide Technology, a $12 billion information technology systems integrator. Cavanaugh and his management team have guided Worldwide Technology from a small startup technology company into a world-class organization with nearly 7,000 employees. Jim currently focuses his time in the areas of technology innovation, long-term planning, strategic acquisitions, financial performance, and passionately overseeing Worldwide Technology's unique corporate culture. We'd also like to welcome Ann Marr, Executive Vice President, Global Human Resources, and a member of the executive team for Worldwide Technology. In her role, Ann oversees all global human resource functions, which include talent acquisition, strategic staffing, policy development, benefits and compensation, compliance, training, leadership development, and employee relations. As a strategic partner, Ann also manages the company's corporate development program, which includes diversity and inclusion, supplier diversity, and small business enterprise, and also manages the company's communication efforts. Now, Worldwide Technology has been recognized as the best company for nearly a decade. That includes 9 consecutive years on the 100 Best list and being recognized as a best company for diversity and a best workplace in technology. Jim and Ann are being joined in conversation by our CEO, Michael Bush. Thank you both for joining us. And Michael, without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you very much. And Jim and Ann, welcome. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. I know it's going to be great for our audience to learn from both of you today. Jim, I'd like to start with you. I have a feeling that, no matter where we are in the world, there's something in our office, our home office, or in our working world that WWT powers, directly or through your partnerships. So can you help our audience understand the global impact that WWT has through the work that you do and how you do that work?
Certainly. First of all, Michael, it's great to be here with you and your audience and the entire Great Place to Work team. Just really enjoyed working with you and the team and learning a lot over the years. So again, thanks for having me and Ann participate. Worldwide Technology, just to be very brief, we are a global company. We have people all over the world, dealing with different personalities, different cultures, which is very powerful, but also can be very complex when you're dealing with a global company and the different opportunities and issues that you deal with. But what we do that is consistent and impactful from a business perspective is we help companies and organizations, public sector, could be big global financial institutions, middle market companies, educational organizations, colleges, universities. We help them build out their back office IT infrastructure. So all the complexity that goes into running an organization from an IT standpoint, data center, storage, compute, networking, voice, video, virtualization. Those are things that we help them design, build, and implement. And then we also do the software development side that takes us closer to the lines of business and the CEOs, the board of directors, in regards to where they're going from a digital transformation perspective. So thinking about where the world's going and how digital is having such an impact on how you order food, how you engage with a doctor, patient experience, fan experience, customer experience. So those are things we help customers design and build their digital strategy, and then actually build the software that they'll actually use to drive that mobile app or that web presence that engages and connects with their customers, fans, patients, employees. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. It's a really exciting time for us. And we believe that we can really make a difference. We just adjusted our tagline, and our tagline is around making a new world, and how do we impact and drive kind of this new world experience. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we focus on making a new world happen.
Okay. Well, Jim, clearly in 2020, there's a lot of organizations that wouldn't have survived without your support. That's what the digital transformation has done. Any companies, just to help our audience, that you partner with, that you want to name so that they can, understand the whole context?
Certainly. And it's also, there's a kind of a multiplier effect here, Michael, with that, because some of the companies that we are very aligned with and our strategic partners are also very much engaged with Great Places to Work and you, and specifically Cisco is a big partner, our largest partner. And we have a very good relationship on the business and the leadership side to collaborate, strategize in regards to not only how we bring the business forward and how we drive these competitive solutions, but also how do we do the right thing from our employees and growing and developing our cultures that positively impact the communities around us. So Cisco is a big partner, VMware, Dell EMC, NetApp, just all those technology players out there are companies that we partner with. And it's great to see that you guys have great relationships with many, if not all of them.
Yes, we do. Okay. So Jim, if you could, 2020 was like a blur now. Just a constant state of waking up, not knowing what you're going to face, and getting through it. And now we've got hope in the world based on the vaccine. Thank goodness. And 2020, we didn't have the hope. We didn't know. So things are better now. But if you could go back, into let's say March, February, March of 2020. I think the last time we saw each other was in early March. And when your team started to realize something's happening, being a global company, something's happening with COVID-19. If you could just take us back to that moment and the things that you walked through as a team to take care of your people.
Yeah, very interesting, Michael, because as you mentioned, it's amazing how much has gone on since the Great Place to Work event that you had. And that was probably the last real out-of-town travel that we had as as COVID really started changing the way that we operate today. So it just triggered it when we're talking here, and really those things were coming at us, and we were all trying to figure it out, even at the event as things were happening. And then as that proceeded, it came on so fast. I mean, it was just so quick that literally it wasn't like, oh, here's a strategic plan. I remember it was on a Sunday morning, and I was talking to some other friends Saturday night, and all of a sudden things just started picking up, and they were picking up so quickly in regards to the impact of COVID and what you should do. And there's no playbook for something like this. So we literally, with Ann and our executive team, we got on a call that Sunday morning, and we started talking through this, like what is going on? What is the impact? And the thing that we did at that point was, one, to agree that we've got to lean into this, and we've got to stay on top of this, and we've got to keep our eyes and our ears open to be really, really fast learners about what's going on. That was one thing. But the number one most important thing that we did at that time, as we said, the number one priority we have is the safety and well-being of our employees. So that is the guiding vision that we all need to use as the litmus test as we work through this today, whether this is going to be something that we're dealing with for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and as we play this out, or we're dealing with this for a much longer period of time, like we have ended up having to deal with it, still being in the middle of the pandemic. And that is something that really resonated very quickly with our executive team and said, no, that makes complete sense. So every decision that we make is going to be based on asking that question. Is the safety and well-being of our employees the number one priority in this situation? And are we adhering to that? And that's what we did. And so from there, Michael, we just started, we created a cadence where the executive team was getting together almost every day, and in some cases multiple times a day as we were figuring this out. And then we were starting to sort it out and figure out, okay, how do we deal with frontline workers? And there is a difference between your frontline and your virtual workers. And it was that morning that we literally said, all right, we're sending out an email, and all of our virtual workers that had the ability to work virtually are going to stay at home. And so because of the technology, we started adjusting, and we had a lot of the technology in place. But then, because what I also wanted to focus on in the team, we agreed on, is that we don't want to be distracted. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the safety and well-being of our frontline workers. And we have to do everything we can, so we can't afford to have any distractions in regards to focusing on the safety and well-being of our frontline workers. And those were really the driving, I would say, decisions that we had, and that, you know, I asked, and really there was no debate with the executive team. We all came together on that very, very quickly. So that makes complete sense. And it really helped. And that was the part of the messaging, and maybe I'll pause, but that was also part of the messaging that we communicated very early that week to the entire company, is that the safety and well-being of our employees is and will always be our number one priority. And in this global pandemic, you will see that. That is what's going to drive how we make decisions. And then from there, I would say, just keeping our eyes and ears open to things that are going on from a macro perspective, and what we're learning from the medical experts and the CDC and the World Health Organization, but also staying very in tune with our employees. What are they feeling? And as you know, Michael, this year, our 2020 has been a year of much angst, a lot of challenges, not only with COVID, but some of the social injustices and the social unrest that has been going on, political issues. And so that messaging was really, really important to our employees. Even when we didn't have great answers for them, they wanted to know what we were seeing and what we were feeling. And they wanted that reassurance that their safety and well-being was the number one priority. And so I'll pause there maybe for a minute, but that's how we started reacting very quickly on a Sunday morning, and it really progressed from there.
And what did you do, Jim, to make sure, you know, your people, particularly with that frontline focus, heard from you? What kind of methods did you use so that they could hear directly from you?
So we did a number of things, Michael. This was one that I always try to, as a leader, balance. Sometimes as a leader, I think sometimes you can over communicate. And then if you over communicate and it kind of sounds like the Charlie Browns, blah, 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 and your employees, are they really listening? It's like it's going in one ear and out. So it's trying to figure out the art and science of what's the right amount of information, call it in a standard course of business, to communicate things. In this situation, very frequent and consistent reinforcement of the message was incredibly important. So, and this was also a message, even up until Ann and I were just on a call earlier with a few other executives. It's very important that I'm the one giving that message. Some things you want to be delegated, and you want to show that kind of spirit behind that and the connection. And things like this, I believe, and we believe, that it has to come from the leader. And then it gets cascaded down throughout by the other members. And that's one thing I'm incredibly proud of the team, is that when we got on message and said, these are the top priorities, number one being safety and well-being of our employees, we were really good at. I was really impressed with our team. There was no, questioning of what we're communicating in the messaging that we had and how we're going to go about doing things. So the other thing I would say, Michael, is frequency of live video casts of me speaking to our entire employee base. And that was done very frequently. And then the cascading of that same message down to from each one of the VPs in their specific areas. And then we created these listening tours. And we did that very quickly. We used whether social platforms, we used just email at times, we did videos like this, connecting with different groups of our employees to see what are they feeling. And as you know, we had the frontline workers that we really had to focus on, but then over time, the remote workers, there was a level of angst and challenges that they were dealing with, people with families and smaller quarters. And so you had a lot of this. And so from my view was one, getting everybody on the same page, being very consistent about your message. And I would say the other thing our message was, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. I would love to tell you this is a sprint. We're going to get through this in 2 weeks or 2 months or 4 months, but I can't tell you that. So the best thing I can tell you is that we need to be prepared to work through this over the long haul. The other thing I would say as a leader, you can't just talk, you need to act. And, I'll give you an example. So it's, it was challenging. You go back to the early days of COVID, and there were a lot of people, we just didn't know what this virus was doing. You look in the United States, killed almost 500,000 people, and it's growing. So back then it was even scarier because you didn't know exactly what that meant. So when we were going through and we were quickly adopting and integrating safety protocols, temperature testing, social distancing, sanitization in our facilities, it was very important that I would go out to our distribution logistics facilities, our integration labs, and be present. And Ann would go with me. And we would tour those facilities. We would do it with masks on. We would be socially distanced. We would get temperature checked but it was very important from a leader that was like, okay, you go out and go to work and be a frontline worker, but I'm going to be locked down here. And I'm not going to basically say that I believe in the safety protocols that we're putting in place. So going through this, anytime my advice to a leader is one, you need to act quickly, but you need to do it very thoughtfully. And it's more of a meritocracy than it is a democracy. So you can't get the information. Everybody's not voting, but it's not a dictatorship either. So you want to get the best amount of it, the most intelligent information, and get the best grouping of people you can to make the most intelligent decisions you can as quickly as possible. And then that consistent messaging is what, again, we focused on in a cascading net throughout the organization. And then this constant learning and making sure that our employees, you built a level of trust, and hopefully you had an organization and a culture that your employees trust you, because that goes a long way with them understanding, especially when part of the communication is, I don't have all the answers, and we don't have all the answers, and nobody does. So we're trying to figure this out as we go forward. So just understand our guiding principles are, number one is your safety and well-being, but we're going to learn, and we've got to be quick learners as we go forward. And as you're quick learners, we also have to act. And so that would be kind of the process, Michael, that we're doing that even as we speak today. We're trying to figure out, okay, as the vaccine is getting rolled out, what is that going to mean to our remote workers who are still working remotely? And then you look at our frontline workers, as they get the vaccine, you have a lot of things that you're dealing with. It would be nice to know from an organizational perspective, who took the vaccine and who has it. So when you engage them back into work, you know who has it, and you know the safety of that for our employees. But we also have, you know, data privacy issues, and some employees don't want to give that information, and they feel like that's their own personal data. And that's part of the value and the power of the United States and the structure that we have, but it also makes it a challenge. So, you know, those are things that we're wrestling right now. We're wrestling with is as the vaccine gets rolled out, who's going to take it? A lot of people will take the vaccine. There's going to be some that don't want to take the vaccine. And then but figuring out when do we feel like we can start stepping back on some of the safety protocols, wearing a mask, temperature testing, social distancing, you know, isolating certain groups. And again, there is no perfect handbook that says here's when you do these things. And as you go through this entire process, you need to be thinking about these things. And again, communicating both on the remote worker and the frontline worker, and doing it very thoughtfully. But again, you need to do it with speed. Now, my perspective is one, bringing employees back and pulling down on the safety measures and the protocols. I would prefer to be a laggard in that space than someone jumping the gun too soon. As far as, you know, I want to be a thought leader and one out on the front when it talks about doing the things that are driving safety and the well-being for your employees. So it's really been a learning process, but I could not be more fortunate and just incredibly pleased with the way that the worldwide executive management team has come together with the level of continuity and consistency to take the messaging that we created and then cascade that down, because I really do believe our employees understand, you know, what our number one priority is, and they understand that we are working really, really hard to stay on top of this until we get through this and everybody's in a much better and safer place.
Well, Jim, you just laid out the playbook. Okay, that there is a playbook now. You just laid it out, which is great for everybody who was listening. That is the playbook, and I think the cover of that playbook is you and Ann walking through the distribution facilities. You know, proving that, hey, if we think it's safe for you, it's safe for us too. I remember talking to Ann after you had done that. That was like, it was a day you had just finished that. And I'll tell you, we deal with a lot of great companies. Not a lot of great companies leaders did that. You know, that's walking the talk right there. So applaud both of you for doing that. And Ann, you know, you've got 93% of the people at Worldwide Technology say it's a great place to work. And that the executives, the team that Jim just talked about, embody the best part of the organization and have high trust. That we have a statement about our layoffs of last resort, which you got to really believe in leadership. You know, when you make that statement, and 94% of the people, it's 10 points over our 100 best benchmark. So this is who Worldwide Technology is, and it creates the kind of situation that you have, and that the high trust that Jim just described. So as you were going through 2020, you got employees, benefits, childcare, mental health, wellness, sick leave, financial planning. Tell us, how did you prioritize and think through those things to take care of your people, and how did you have for all in mind as you did those things?
Yeah, well, first of all, Michael, thanks for having us. And, you know, Jim talked about it. It really starts with the top of the organization. Jim, you know, it starts with Jim and cascades down. When you have a visionary leader that is very conscientious of what's going on and engages the right people, our executive team, it really, everyone was on the same page. And all of the things that you just mentioned, the first thing that came to mind for us as people are going through these challenges, either these individuals working remote for the first time, I was one of them, and then dealing with when kids then schools were closed. Then they had the challenge of remote learning, which parents never heard of that before. In addition to, we have on-site workers. Mental health was always first and foremost. As Jim mentioned, taking care of our employees. But that wasn't really new to us, because this is a message that we have continued to reinforce for our employees for years. You know, when we would have our corporate updates for the last several years, that was always something Jim was reinforcing. Mental health, physical health, well-being, financial health, all those were already consistent. What we did is continue to reinforce that, knowing people were going through what they were going through, because we understood the challenges that people had. We understood the anxiety. I would talk to my team and I would hear it in their voices. And then we started to get creative about what other resources can we help provide to them. So we researched, and we had a company we partnered with that if someone was having some challenges with the remote learning and kids being home, here's a resource that you can reach out to. You can tap into this resource and have some individual come to your house and help you with balancing that with those individuals that had these challenges. So we really listened to the employees, and we really wanted to help support them. But the mental health thread was always something that we have reinforced as an organization for years. But we just really made sure we amped it up to make sure people knew that it was okay. It was okay to have the anxiety. It was okay to be stressed out. It was okay to be on a WebEx call and see your dog walking in the background or barking in the background, or your kid's little head pops up. Because I think people, when that first started happening, they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. It's just part of life. You're going into people's homes, and that's part of your house. That's part of your home. But the acceptance of that, so that people can feel confident that they were being supported by Worldwide, that was really, really important. And to Jim's point, the health and well-being of employees and their families has always been and continued to be from day one the message that Jim conveyed.
Okay. And you know, just to make things more challenging, we had the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
As well as the, you know, it's like things can't get any worse, and they did. So there we have it. And people not being able to connect, you know, to sort through that. So I know that as a result, there are some steps that you took around ERG formation and so on. If you could just take us back to that moment and how you knew that to respond in that way, and then how you supported your people through that.
Yeah, you're right, Michael. It just changed the game in so many ways. But you know what? We stepped up from day one. I think the first thing Jim did was tweet it out on behalf of him and the company that, you know, racism has no place in this world. That was his message, loud and clear to the employees. And I think within the next couple days, he again was in front of employees, you know, as he has done, to communicate the message to employees. That was the first thing. And I think it was really important for people to understand, coming from the CEO makes the biggest impact. We could all support him in that effort, but when the message is heard, I always say, from the horse's mouth, it makes the biggest impact. But we did, look at that situation and say, what can we do as an organization? And Jim mentioned it earlier. The first thing we did is started listening to our employees. What can we do? How can we help? That was the most important thing. And then from that, created these listening tours, starting with listening to our Black and African American employees, because that was the demographic that it impacted the most. So we heard from them and really listened to some of the things that they provided us, that we started to build out a diversity and inclusion plan. Now, we always had a D&I program, but this really accelerated a lot of the things that we were doing. And the listening tour was really important because we listened to employees. And during those listening tours, we heard such compelling stories that employees were providing to us that were really insightful. And then our executive team started to be a part of the listening tours, listening to groups of employees. And from that, the educational, just listening and learning, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You don't realize what they're going through. And listening to what people are saying, for instance, you know, if you had a Black female who has Black sons, and her lesson to her sons, when you go outside, you know, you don't put your hoodie up because you don't want to be arrested, you don't want to be stopped. When you're in the car, put your hands on the wheels. These were stories we heard. And so then Jim's idea was, you know what, we want to capture these stories and really play those back as a learning opportunity for our employees, and started storytelling. And it has been so inspiring to hear some of the stories of some of our employees. That came out of these listening tours. You know, we always had a D&I initiative, but we had an internal person, you met Bob Farrell, stepped up and said, I want to help and be a part of this initiative, and became the D&I leader, working with me. We brought in another D&I program manager and really started to build things out based on the foundation that we already had as an organization. We always had an integrated management and leadership initiative, making sure we connected the D&I with that, but communicating to employees and leaders, you know, to lean in, show empathy and consideration, really understand what people are going through. It was a mess, and it wasn't just in the US. We saw some of this happen outside of the US, you know, talking to some of our team in London, talking to some of our team in Amsterdam. It affected not only the US, it affected our global organization. So we really sprang into action to make sure that we were listening, and to Jim's point, not just hearing, but really putting things in motion, so that we're not just hearing, we're doing, we're executing on the feedback that we got from our employees. And we continue to do it. The listening tours were pulled into this year. We're still, I had one on Monday night. Executives are still facilitating that. You know, we still have our D&I initiatives. We built out more ERGs, and we have 7 ERGs now. We just had an ERG fair in January, and we just celebrated with the Asian and Pacific Islander group, Lunar New Year. We're going through Black History Month. So it is something that has really, as an organization, is just so proud to see the employees and the focus on that culture of inclusion, no matter where you are. And these ERG groups are not just for a certain demographic. Everyone is available to participate. And you know, the most important thing, Michael, is it has executive leadership support. We had a member of the executive team step up and has been committed to being an executive sponsor to each one of those ERGs, along with Jim and our president and our CFO, along with me and Bob Farrell. I mean, so it has impacted the organization tremendously. But the important thing is having that executive level interaction. I'm not just talking, I'm doing. They're committed and they're part of those.
Yeah, I would add, if possible, maybe, Ann, I'll add one or two things to this, Michael, just to add on. Well said, Ann. You captured so much that we're doing that has really helped us. I mean, it's helped us learn and understand. And I would like to just give 2 points. One, it's amazing what you can learn about different individuals just by asking, and as Ann said, truly listening to understand and to do something. You know, we had one employee, a young woman that basically called out and said how much, you know, the company updates and how we're communicating our position on, you know, the social injustices and the racism that I mean, it's just some horrible things that have happened. At the same time, we were communicating violence in general, just overall, we do not condone, period. And this was a young Black woman that was dealing with stress of had kids, living at home, working it remotely, but her husband was also a police officer. So she has all kinds of things, going through her mind and dealing with, the safety and well-being of her husband, going in, and then the turmoil and the angst, and you just don't know. I mean, we're all different. We handle things differently. So I think that was part of it, is really allowing people to feel safe and to be able to voice what they're dealing with. And I think, times that managers and leaders, we don't go to school for this, we don't get trained up, but that can be very therapeutic. And the feedback that we've received from employees, just by knowing that we care and by asking how are they doing and taking the time to listen, and then for them to be able to share with others, it's been incredible, so that was positive. And one other thing, Michael, I would just say on what we are doing from a D&I perspective, and what we've invested in relative to our integrated management and leadership curriculum, that literally is a management leadership program that actually touches all of our managers and leaders and all of our employees as we cascade it through, based on our values, which really is how we train people on the type of behavior that is to create a great place to work for all, and it drives our culture. And so the D&I program, as we wanted to move quickly, but we didn't want to just respond to things, because we look again at the D&I program as not something that we're dealing here for 2020. This is got to be part of our DNA. This has got to be part of, this is not a sprint again, this is a marathon. And we are committed to this, to build it into the DNA of the company, that in 10 years from now, that it is part of the foundational piece. So as we train people and we bring people on board, and as much as we're evaluating and asking them about their skills relative to their jobs and how they will do relative to the business, we're also looking at them from a values perspective and behaviors. And so now D&I is built into, and it's an integral piece of our integrated management and leadership curriculum that every manager and leader is trained on, and then cascades that throughout the organization. And then that connects to not only all of our existing employees, but all the employees that we're recruiting and we're bringing on board. And if they don't understand that and embrace, and we're not saying everybody has to be a robot in regards to, our values and behavior, but there are certain things that these are core tenets and foundational pieces of Worldwide, and D&I is one of them. So I'm really happy that not only have we moved quickly, but we built it into a foundational piece of the business that will be living, 6 months from now and 6 years or 10 years from now. So very, very happy with how the team has listened, learned, and acted, but done it in a way that is not a short-term solution. It's a long-term program that we have in commitment.
I often get asked if I think that the experiences of 2020 and companies' response, in terms of making statements regarding social justice, are performative, or are they going to make lasting change? The difference is whether or not it becomes a part of the DNA as you described. If it hasn't altered the way you do business, like Ann saying, look, just had a listening session 2 nights ago. If it hasn't altered, I think it's performative. But if people are fundamentally changing the way they act, relate, and what they're talking about, and the support that they're providing and learning, it will be more than that. So it's whether it's the actions that organizations are taking. Just have time for a couple more questions, but I think the secret weapon, there's 2 secret weapons at Worldwide Technology. One is your purpose, your roots and your beginning, and the culture and purpose of service. I think that's the secret weapon. That's what it is from day one. I read Dave's book. I have it here on my shelf. You know, that's the root right there. That's why worldwide technology will continue to win. Just service, you know, one human being to another. The second one is the integrated management and leadership framework. I haven't seen anything like it. In a few pages, if you're a leader, you know exactly what's expected. And even if you have a reading disability, you've done it visually. I mean, there's no way around it, you know. So I would like you to both make a few comments about the power of that framework.
Ann, I'll let you start.
You know, you're right, Michael. It is powerful, and you know, I think it's been something that has been built internally. It's not something, and it's over time. So it's not something we just pulled out of a box and say, "Oh, this looks good." And it's something that has stood the test of time. To Jim's point, and the changes have been made have only enhanced what we currently have, but the impact I think it has, not just on leaders, on the entire organization, has been significant. Because the tools, it's a really great toolkit. And to your point, Michael, you've seen it. You've seen the couple of little one-pagers we have on it. It's very transparent in terms of what the expectations are, but the guidance is really what is impactful, and the expectations and how, and it creates that consistency across the board as an organization. So it's been a powerful tool that we've developed over the years. And to Jim's point, integrating the D&I, it just makes it even better. So Jim, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would just add to it that I think one of the challenges, Michael, that organizations have, especially CEOs, really smart CEOs, so I don't put myself in that category, but really smart CEOs that are out there and really smart people, they tend to get bored. And so because they get bored, they want to change things. And you put yourself in a position where it's like, okay, leadership now has become kind of the book of the month club. So what is really popular, we're going to go pull that book in. I'm going to send it out. I'm going to bring some consultants in, and they're going to basically talk about the new and the next wave of leadership and what that means. And what happens is your people, I find, and this is what I've said, it's not my job necessarily to entertain, but it's to really help build and guide the organization in a way that becomes, I would say, very foundational to how people act and behave. And to do that, it takes time for people to build good habits. And so if you're constantly changing things, even though they may be interesting, no one's really going to be able to get their arms, and their mind and their body and their soul wrapped around that. So it's been very important that our integrated management and leadership curriculum, we custom built this ourselves. And, I've spent a lot of time on this, and Ann and the other executives collaborating. But one of the most challenging things that I've had going through this at one point in time were really my own leadership team challenging me, saying, Jim, you just keep repeating yourself. You keep talking about these things. And they almost had me. I almost relented. I was like, wow. And then I literally read a book, Patrick Lencioni's book on the advantage, and it talked about some of these things about leaders falling into that trap of, trying to be more interesting than actually substantive. And so, fortunately, I did not give on those things. And our IML is one of those, if you think about it, you have all your employees that you have today. And if you're a growth company, unfortunately, you do have some employees that leave for different reasons, and you're bringing new employees on. Well, they need to be educated on those things, on your values and your behaviors. And if you take those things and you get them trained up, and these are really good habits of how to have a difficult conversation, how to put the right people in the right place. These are easy things to say. They're not so easy to do when you have to have that really difficult conversation. And so, but that's how you develop employees. And so the same thing, when we take and we integrate D&I, and we've spent, I can't tell you how many hours, the executive team, building out our D&I curriculum and the presentation and the feedback. And then we used our ERG groups to be the test pilots of those. So we basically ran it, and the feedback was like, wow, I did not expect this. I cannot believe the substance. And the feedback that we received was that, and it makes me feel like this is something that Worldwide is committed to, not just today, but long-term, because you have it integrated into the integrated management and leadership curriculum. It makes me feel that it is just part of the substance and the foundation of Worldwide. So that's, I guess, the thing I would look at, and even to leaders and, ones big and small, is you've got to take the time to be very, very thoughtful about your values, your behaviors, and your management and leadership curriculum, and be careful not to go chase the shining object, because it takes time, and it takes a lot of time to get everybody on the same page and know that you're talking from the same vocabulary, whether you're in San Francisco, you're in New York, St. Louis, China, Malaysia, London. And that's the power that we also see, Michael, of being a great place to work for all, is that there's a common language and a common set of behaviors, regardless of where you are, that everybody can align to, and it's motivating for people. So that's just another piece. And then to integrate our D&I piece of that to be not just like a one-off program, it's foundational to who we are, how we act, and how we behave.
Yeah, that's changing the DNA. And so just to take us home, Jim, and I'll invite my colleague Julian Lute to come in just to wrap up the logistics for our listeners. Jim, as you look ahead, 2021, 2022, I'd like you to answer two questions. One is, as you're looking ahead, what are you really concentrating on, in terms of maintaining the competitive advantage for Worldwide Technology? And are you optimistic as you look out to the future?
So the first response, I would say I am optimistic. I would say I'm a very pragmatic person, but I'm optimistic about the world. I think the world is actually moving in a better, place. And there's a lot of things that are happening that feel very challenging, but I think the world is becoming a better and better place. Relative to Worldwide, I am optimistic. I think what we're doing just has incredible opportunity. We've got our set of challenges, just like anybody. And if I looked at it, Michael, a couple of different ways. I think the companies that are going to survive and thrive for the long term, if you go back and you look at the Dow and you look at companies on Fortune 500 companies 30 years ago, they were on there for a long time and they stayed on there. Today, you're going to see movement that these companies are cycling, and the companies that I believe are really going to be successful are the ones that have rigorous and disciplined management and leadership teams, but also ones that can adapt, adjust, and be very innovative and agile without chasing every shining object. So that's a lot there packed in. So you want a level of discipline and rigor in what you are doing, and you want to be able to innovate, but you got to be careful that there's a lot of opportunity, and if you're chasing the shining object, you lose your focus on the core. So I think overall there's a lot of opportunity. If you looked at two things that I'm most focused on, whether it's in the pandemic or outside, it's to drive a high-performing organization. One, we have to perform very well just on the business, the financial, operational side of things. Equally, if not more important, is our culture. It's our values, our culture, and our people. And I believe today it's even more important, because if you think you're going to grow, energize, and engage your employee base by micromanaging employees, that's not where the world is going. So to be able to create a really engaging and empowered and an employee base that feels trusted and safe, that's where you're going to create a multiplier effect of your employees. So I feel very, good about the organizational structure and the people and the culture of Worldwide. And I feel good that we're fortunately in a space driving, digital transformations for organizations of all different sizes. And that's not just something that, is happening here in the US, it's happening all around the world. And it also, basically states the importance of creating a great place to work for all. And I think, Michael, you putting for all on that small change, that subtle change, I think has really caused people to think differently. You wouldn't think that those two words could make such a difference, but they really do. And we pay very, very close attention to that.
Okay, well, Julian, I'm going to do a part of your job, which is to thank Jim and Ann. So you don't have to do it. I'm going to do it. Thanks to both of you for walking the talk. I mean, just absolutely changing your organization for the better as you go forward. That's what makes the difference, for all of us going forward. So thank you very much for being the for all leaders that you both are. You're great teams and all the great people at Worldwide Technology. This is a proud moment. Also, something you didn't even talk about, your outstanding financial performance. It's like you don't even talk about it because you're talking about your people and your culture, but your market-beating financial performance. So it's the whole package of showing that it's better for business, better for people, and better for the world. So thanks to both of you for being who you are, and I salute to your great teams. Okay, Julian.
Michael.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Julian?
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined us today. The recording will be shared next week. In March, our Better Together CEO conversation will be with Hilton, so make sure to mark your calendars. And if you haven't done so already, visit our Better Together landing page at greatplacetowork.com for the Hilton conversation notification and notifications of all future sessions. And be sure to share that with your community. If you'd like to share your experience or you have additional questions, please send them to michael_bush@greatplacetowork.com. On behalf of Great Place to Work, thank you again for joining us because we know and you know that we are better together. Take good care.